Hey there, this is Juver once again of Jolo English Center Hanoi. This afternoon I will be talking about IELTS vocabularies in writing. I'll be focusing on advantage and disadvantage. Now the question here is, how important to know the different ways to express the word advantage and disadvantage? Alright, so I'll be giving you synonyms of an advantage. So we have here some examples. We have 4 in my list. First, we have a benefit, positive aspect, and a good point. And the last one is an argument in favor of. Now let me start with a benefit. So instead of using advantage, we just simply say it is a benefit for everybody to do an exercise every day. Instead of saying like it is an advantage for everybody to do an exercise every day, just simply replace it with a benefit. Next is we have the positive aspect. One of the positive aspects in exercising is we can be fit and healthy. So instead of saying like advantage, one of the advantages in exercising, we can simply use positive aspects. Remember that in IELTS Task 2 writing, we need to vary our vocabularies. So you need to be very careful in using words because we are not allowed to use repetition of words. Now here we have also a good point. Instead of using the word advantage, you can simply say a good point. Example, a good point in listening to English music is we can improve our vocabularies. So instead of using an advantage in listening to music, you can simply say a good point in listening to music. The last example, we have here an argument in favor of. Instead of using an advantage, you just simply say an argument in favor of eating vegetables is we can maintain a healthy diet, instead of saying an advantage of eating vegetables. So I hope that these 4 synonym words of advantage, we can apply this when we start writing in our Task 2 IELTS. Alright, so I hope that these 4 synonym words of advantage we can use or we can apply this when we start writing IELTS in Task 2. Okay, so let me also talk about the synonyms of disadvantage. So I have actually 6 in my list. First, we have drawbacks, an objection, negative effect, downside. We also have negative criticism, and the last is an argument against. Now I will give you examples each of these words. So let me start with drawbacks. Instead of using the word disadvantage, you simply say one of the drawbacks in spending much time using computer is destroying our eyes, instead of saying one of the disadvantages. Next, let me give an example of the word an objection. Instead of saying disadvantage, you simply replace with the phrase an objection. Example, eating much meat is an objection to our health. Instead of saying eating much meat is a disadvantage to our health. Then another example of the synonym words of disadvantage, we have negative effect. So example, there's always a negative effect of drinking alcohol too much. So instead of saying there's always a disadvantage of drinking alcohol too much. And then I have also here downside, which is another synonym word of disadvantage. Example, my parents are focusing on the downside of my accomplishments, instead of saying my parents are focusing on the disadvantage of my accomplishments. And another synonym word of disadvantage, we have negative criticism. So let me give you an example. Aside from the positive feedbacks, there's always a negative criticism from the people. So instead of saying like aside from the positive feedbacks, there's always a disadvantage from the people. Next, we have the last example, argument against. How are we going to use this in a sentence? For example, it is a strong argument against the idea to take a lot of medicines. So instead of saying it is a disadvantage to the idea to take a lot of medicines. So those are just few of the examples of the synonyms of disadvantage. So those are just few of the synonym words of the word advantage and disadvantage. So I hope you guys try to use and apply this in your writing IELTS test. Before I end, I would like to ask the viewers this one question. Walking instead of driving is blank to the environment. So the choices are benefit, B, beneficial, C, advantage, D, drawback. Again, walking instead of driving is blank to the environment. A, benefit, B, beneficial, C, advantage, D, drawback. Alright, so if you want to answer, you can simply type your answer to the comment box. And don't forget to leave the comment for what you want to study next. This is Juver Buen Camino Sidon. Have a nice day.